Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about how to create a Wigglegram using Adobe Photoshop. So recently in commercial photography, we shot some images with old film cameras. One of them was actually a newer camera, and it was a Reto 3D camera, which has three lenses that all expose an image of the same subject at the exact same time. And together, using them in Photoshop, you can create kind of an animated GIF wiggling effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take three images. We're going to use these ones right here, and we're going to load them up. If you have your images in Lightroom, what you can do would be to open them as layers into Photoshop. I don't, so I am just dragging and dropping mine into Photoshop. Let's see. Let's actually do this again. So I'm going to select all three, drag them in here, get them all in there, and delete the original three. I think I dragged one in there twice. All right, let's rotate this so that it's the right way up. And then I'm going to pull up my timeline panel. Mine actually was already displayed, but I'm doing it again. So window and then check timeline. That will display your timeline panel. I'm then going to click on the words create frame animation. That will start a frame animation. I will then go over here to my flyout menu and click on the words make frames from layers. Photoshop will then look at the different layers that I've got, and it will try to create an animation out of them. And because it's going to be a looped animation, what I actually want to do is I'm going to add in a fourth frame. I'm going to make the fourth frame the same picture as frame 2. I'm then going to select all of the layers by holding one, clicking on one, holding shift, clicking on the last one, and then changing the time. Let's try 0.2 seconds. Now if I hit play, we should see our little looped animation there, and it goes from one side to the other. And if I wanted to put that up on Instagram, I would, remember Instagram has a limit of 3 seconds for every picture there, so I would have to duplicate this a little bit, which you could do. You could copy frames, let's see, and then paste the frames. Copy frames, paste frames. Now, of course, you'd have to repeat this process quite a bit in order to get to 3 seconds. If you're familiar with Adobe Premiere, it'd be a little bit easier to do that in Premiere. Once you've got it as long as you want, you can go up here to File, Export, and then hit Render Video. Two things you want to pay attention to. One, the name, that's the name of your video. Call this one Wigglegram, and then select folder, that's where it's going to go. I put mine on the desktop. You do always want to make sure your format is set to H.264. That will give you a MP4 file, and then you hit the word render. Let's do this one more time. So we should have lots of other possible little Wigglegrams we can make in here. Let's see. The closer they are, the better they work. Let's use this one of shoes. So I'm going to drag one in here. We'll drag the other one on top of it, and then we will drag the third one there as well. Once again, we need to rotate these. We're going to rotate them counterclockwise. So that's image rotation, and then 90 degrees counterclockwise. Pull up our timeline panel, window timeline, click on the words, create frame animation, flyout menu, make frames from layers. I'm going to add in a fourth frame, and the fourth frame is going to be the same as frame 2. Select all of them by holding shift, change the time to 0.2 seconds, and then hit play. We can see what we've got. I'm actually not sure we're displaying everything correctly. This one should be that one. This last one should be this one. Yeah, so you can manually do that if Photoshop doesn't get your frames correct. Let's try this again. Hit play, and then we can see that it goes back and forth. This one's interesting because it has different exposure values for each little image there. Once again, make sure that you get it at least 3 seconds. If you want to put it on Instagram, we're going to open up Adobe Premiere, and I can show you how to do that. If you're at home and you have access to Photoshop, you also have access to Adobe Premiere. I'm going to go ahead and export this out. Let's see, so we'll say, while waiting on Premiere, File, Export, Render Video. We'll call this Wigglegram Example. Make sure that it's on our desktop, and we will hit Render. This should take just 1 second. Oh, well, maybe a few seconds. We're ignoring the fact that I only have 8% battery left. All right, we will say new project. We'll call this Wigglegram and say OK. By the way, while we're waiting for that, if you're in Photoshop, if you weren't putting it on Instagram, if you just wanted to text it to somebody instead, you could say file export and then say save for web legacy. And instead of an MP4, we could say this as an animated GIF. GIFs can contain animations, as you already know. It might take a minute if it's a fairly big file size. Make sure it says GIF over here, and the looping options are set to forever, and then you can hit save to actually save it. I don't need to save mine, so I'm not going to. All right, let's see if we've got Premiere open. Premiere is open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our little Wigglegram example, drag it right down here into our bin, add it to our timeline by clicking and dragging it. Let's zoom in on it just a little bit. So we need to get to the 3-second mark. So what I can do is hold Alt and just duplicate it over and over and over again until I get it to be as long as I want. Once you get a few out there, you can select them all and then hold Alt, and it will copy all of them. So that's a way that you can lengthen your video using Premiere. And then, of course, with Premiere, you say File. You go in here to Export and say Media in order to save it. And this works a lot like Photoshop's File, Export, Render Video function, where you just change the name of it. When you click on this, you can tell it where it's going to go. That's really about it. But once again, if you're making it for Instagram, make sure that it's 3 seconds. But that is it. That's how you can make a Wigglegram using 3 different pictures and Adobe Photoshop and a little bit of Premiere if you want to.